Welcome on to the next of our 2019 Medihelp trapNET online webinars. It's great to have you with us. My name is Brad. We've got our cycling coach Devlin Eyden with us. And before we do get going, I just want to make sure that everyone can see and hear us. If you can see the Medihelp trapNET logo on your screen, please let me know in the comments. Say, yep, I can see the logo, and also tell me where you're joining us from tonight. So pop that into the comments. I want to make sure that you can hear me and see me 100%. Please do that if you wouldn't mind. We've got Dean saying, hello. How's it, Dean? Thanks for that. I can see and hear, which is fantastic. Where are you joining us from tonight, Dean? Let us know that as well. And yeah, if there's anyone else, please let us know that you can see and hear us. And if you wouldn't mind, Dean's in Centurion, so literally just around the corner from where everything's going to be happening at the end of the month, which is brilliant. If you wouldn't mind as well, if I could ask you a huge favour, if you are in any cycling groups, sort of Facebook groups, please share this into some cycling groups. We'd obviously like to get this in front of as many people as we can who are going to be riding at the end of the month. Paul, how's it to you as well? Also in Centurion. It's Ritorello also joining us tonight. Tertia is joining us in Midrand. Peter can see and hear, which is awesome. Renee is joining us in Cape Town as well, which is awesome. So there we go. It looks like everything is working the way it should, which is fantastic. Gerard also can hear us, which is awesome. All right, cool. Let's get straight into things and let's not mess around because there is a lot to get through tonight. So as always, a massive welcome from the entire team here at the Medihelp trapNET and beyond. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brad Brown. I'm the dude on the left, okay, not the racing snake on the right. I've got a radio and TV background, and I co-own a business called Coach Parry, and I also swim, bike, and run a little bit. And I'm just here to host. I'm here to facilitate things tonight. It's all about you this evening, and we've got our cycling coach, Devlin Eyden, with us too. He's a senior sports scientist at Semley at the University of Pretoria. He's a Cycle Australia Level 2 coach, and he's our resident cycling coach here at Coach Parry. And Devlin joins us tonight. Dev, how's it?
Brad, how's it going, man? Looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, so am I. And Dev, you've got to love technology because you're going to be riding the Medihelp trapNET in a couple of weeks' time, and I believe that you doing some high altitude training in the Alps. Is that correct?
I wish I could say it was up in the Alps, but actually in France at the moment. Having a little bit of time off and probably starting my taper a little bit earlier than everyone else.
It's all good. You did a multi-day stage race last week, so it's a well-deserved rest, which is fantastic. But yeah, gotta love technology. Dev's in France on a bit of a holiday and joining us tonight. All right, cool. Just a little bit about Coach Parry and who we are. We're the official coaching partner of the Medihelp trapNET. We offer cycling, running, and triathlon coaching, and you can find out more about us at coachparry.com. All right, cool. Let's get into some housekeeping and what we're going to cover this evening. The first thing we are going to be looking at is the taper. And if you're anything like me, you are... sorry, there we go. I'm actually turning... started playing on my phone. Apologies about that. All right, we're going to be talking about the taper this evening. And we're also going to be talking about what to focus on over the next 2 weeks. And then the registration and the cycling market, and then also just talking about some of the things you need to know and important logistics on race day as well. So if there are any questions, as always, make sure that you do pop them into the comments below, and we will get them onto the screen and we'll answer your questions. We also have a chance for you to win tonight, up for grabs. With the compliments from the folks from ASG, we've got a pair of Rudy Projects. They are the Rudy Project Spinhawk Loud sunglasses, valued at $1,600. And what we're going to do is pick the best question tonight. So you need to be part of this to be in it. Make sure that you do ask some great questions. And I see a couple coming through already. Dean, your question is going to be answered tonight, so stick around. That is a great question. All right, cool. Dev, let's jump straight into things tonight. It's by the sounds of it, we may have a little bit of an echo on your microphone tonight, so I'm going to try and plug a set of headphones in. It might be that it's echoing from my computer onto the actual broadcast tonight. So I'm going to plug us at work, and then, yeah, if you wouldn't mind letting me know in the comments if that does improve Devlin's sound this evening. All right, just to get through some general race info for you tonight. It's a whole weekend of cycling festivities. It's all taking place at Supersport Park in Centurion. There's the cycling market, as I mentioned, and the registration on Friday. It all gets underway at 10 a.m. in the morning and will be open from till 7 p.m. on Saturday from 9 a.m. until 4. And then there's also Junior trapNET, which I'm going to get into some more details with a little bit later on as well. But there are 2 start times for that. So if you've got kids and you want them to be part of the Junior trapNET, it's all happening on Saturday, the 28th of September. And like I said, 2 start times, 10 a.m. and at 12 a.m. So yeah, that's important. And yeah, then the big one obviously on Sunday, it's 95 kilometers, and it starts the first group off at 6:30 in the morning. And it is an official seeding event for the Cape Town Cycle Tour and Ride Joburg. Dev, we've got some great questions coming through. I think let's touch on the taper. Both of the questions that we've got so far that are really good deal with race day, and we'll get to that in a moment. But let's talk about the taper. What should people be doing right about now from a training perspective? Dean, did I say 12 a.m.? I meant 12 p.m. Correct. It's not happening at midnight. My bad on that last slide. You are 100% correct. All right. Let's touch on the taper, Dev. What should people be doing now? 2 weeks to go to race day, essentially. How should we be cutting things down closer to race day? Nope, we seem to have lost Dev. Let me try and get Dev back. Are you there? No, we seem to have lost Dev. I'm just going to bring Dev up again because we seem to have lost him. So we'll try that again. Gotta love technology. I was bragging about how good it is that we had Dev all the way from France, and we'll try him again. And just get him up. So,
hi, Brad. Can you hear me?
Dev, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. All right.
Sorry about that. Not sure.
No worries. I don't know what happened. We just dropped off there. Let's try. We're talking the taper, Dev, and what people should be doing from a tapering perspective. Can you sort of just run through what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing from a taper perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So look, the taper is something I see very often that people sort of misinterpret what the term taper means or what we're referring to when we start talking about tapering towards an event. Now, a taper doesn't mean, right, training done, time off now, and feed up until the race. Taper just means how we alter our training a little bit to make sure that we now start freshening ourselves up and making sure that we're ready come race day without losing too much training and too much fitness, if you'd like to call it, but also making sure that we're not doing anything that's hurting our legs before race day. So that's what we're referring to when we talk about the taper. Now, there are various ways of tapering, and I suppose it's something that is quite individual to the cyclist itself, or to the athlete rather. But I think if we dive into, and as we've done in past webinars where we've broken them up into athletes in sort of the more beginner, novice, sub 5 hour type of rider, these athletes need to focus now, 2 weeks out, generally cutting your training volume by about 25%. You could probably even cut that by about 30% of your training volume. Now remember, that's volume, so the amount of hours that you're spending in the week training. 2 weeks out, you can cut that by about 25%. You still want to keep some intensity in your training program. So for the last couple of weeks, you would have added a little bit more training, a little bit more intensity, a little bit more interval type work into your sessions. So you still want to keep that because your body is now used to that stimulus of getting some high intensity work in. So definitely don't neglect that. You'll start to feel a bit sluggish if you do. But it's important now just to start cutting the volume down slightly. That's 2 weeks out, so where we are currently. Coming closer to the race, so from next week, where we're talking a week out, you can then cut your training volume by 50%. So half what you now will be doing from this week. So again, the idea here is you want to be focusing on your easy recovery type of rides, keeping the body moving, keeping the legs moving. So some training stimulus still. Definitely don't take the last week off completely. You'll just feel that when you get to race day, and if you've taken the whole week off, you're actually going to feel a little bit sluggish on race day because your body's now thought, okay, well, training's done, everything's done, and we now actually can take some time off. So you want to keep that consistency, making sure that we're still focusing on recovery work. You want to be fresh when you get to the start line and make sure that you're not now sitting with tired legs. So at this stage, most of the training should be done, the bulk training should be done, and it's now a case of just sharpening yourself up a little bit, and that's why we keep some intensity of the work in, staying sharp, but also making sure that we're nice and fresh to get going on race day, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
When we start talking now the sub 4:30 or sub 3 hour riders, so obviously now we're talking more seasoned riders, guys that have a lot more training in them, higher level athletes. We're now 2 weeks out. You want to cut your training volume by about 20%. Now you'll see the numbers here change slightly, and these riders typically using this event possibly as a seeding event as well for 947. So they might be in slightly different training phases. So at this stage, you want to cut only about 20% of your volume. Same applies in terms of keeping intensity in your training program. And then a week out, so from next week, you'll cut your training volume by about 30%. Same, everything applies from a taper where you're trying to freshen up, you're trying to take a little bit more of the training load off the legs. But with the riders of this level, we're generally probably keeping a little bit of intensity because they're probably still carrying on racing later into the season still. So we don't want to completely take it off. You just want to be fresh come race day, but making sure that you then still have enough volume to be carrying into further races as something like the 947, for instance, or a couple of other races that might still be happening later into the year. So the nice thing about tapering, or the difference between tapering for a cycling event rather than a running event, is because cycling isn't such high impact and high load on the body, you can get away with a slightly shorter taper period than what you could do with running, for instance, if you're training for a major running event. So the nice thing with cycling is you can shorten your taper period slightly and actually take a little bit less of the volume away. And as I say, don't take the last week off, still keep some work in, and recovery is ultimately the key here.
Absolutely. Cool. Dev, we've got some great questions. We're going to obviously be talking a little bit about race day and going into a lot more detail with that and race day strategies, but we've got a few awesome questions about tapering. First one is from Peter. Peter's saying, I generally ride between 110 and 150 kilometers a week. In the cradle, the average is between 26 and 28 k's per hour. Would you suggest a long ride, 100 k's on Tuesday before the race, and then a good session on the trainer Thursday night, and then rest until Saturday? Or should the last week be nice and easy, like just the engine-to-engine ride on the Friday morning as a leg spin, for example?
So Peter, with this one, in the final week itself, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about doing really long distance work. You could probably get away with doing sort of 2, maybe 3 hour ride. In fact, the 3 hours probably even pushing it in terms of long rides. 2 hour ride you can get away with. If we're talking a trainer session on Thursday, if you're referring to an interval or high intensity type trainer session, I wouldn't do too much high intensity too close to race day. So maybe look at doing your interval or your quality type work maybe on the Tuesday. And then if you are going to do any sharpening or any intensity work on a Thursday closer to the event, really short intervals, it'll just be 1 or 2 builds where you building the legs up, getting a little bit of intensity in the legs, but you want to stay fresh. So in the final week leading up to the race, really tap it off, and you'll actually be better off doing easier rides consistently rather than trying to maybe cram the last little bit into that final week, especially still doing a long ride, because that long ride could also take a little bit of time to actually just get out the system as well.
Absolutely. Cool. I hope that helps. Got a question in here from Dean. There's a bit of background here. So it says, regarding the taper, He's saying, I'm not sure I can afford to. Apologies for missing the last webinar. I took a fall off my bike at 35 k's an hour on the 3rd of September, got an infection, and the second webinar slipped his mind. I've been off the bike for 15 days now, and I'm worried my training has fallen behind. I've never taken such a long break from cycling before, so would like to know what I can expect when I'm back on the bike. And what plan I should do tomorrow. Like, should I expect a loss of fitness, or is my general fitness good enough not to make a difference after his nasty fall?
All right, so this one can be, and again, it is usually, it's quite unfortunate that it happened this close to an event. However, 15 days off the bike, you would have lost a little bit of fitness, definitely, but you are not going to be able to make that up or make up for any lost time now in the final week and a half before the event. So my suggestion now would be get on the bike, get some consistency in the next week and a half before race day, and you might need to reevaluate your goal. So unfortunately, this has happened. You might need to think, okay, on race day, if you were pushing for a sub 3 hour goal, for instance, maybe we need to push that to 3.5. You might still have a sub 3 hour in the legs, but you need to maybe just think a little bit more realistically now. You will, however, do more damage if you think you're going to try and cram training in now in the last week and a half. You're actually not going to make up for any lost time at the moment. It's now more a case of just get on the bike, make sure the legs are loose, make sure that you, again, pain-free from your injury. We obviously don't want you trying to ride through an injury, but it's a case, just keep the legs moving, keep some consistency in your training for the next week and a half, and hopefully come race day you're still feeling good, and maybe the 15-day layoff might have actually done you some good from a rest point of view.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Dev, we are going to get into race day stuff in a second, but we've got a great question here from Andrea-Net, and I'm going to refer Andrea-Net a little bit as well to the last webinar that we did. I'll put the link to that in the sort of comments here. Andrea-Net wants to know what nutrition bars or juices mixes are best for race day. Andrea-Net, the reason I mentioned the last webinar that we did a full hour on nutrition, so the build up and race day. But Dev, in your opinion, what are the best sort of bars that and nutrition mixes that Andrea-Net could be using?
Andrea-Net, I think this is something that I'm hoping you've had some exposure and used some stuff at the moment and might have some idea. A week and a half out, you don't want to start playing around with new bars, new supplements, new things that you're not used to at the moment. And the reason being there is you can have gastrointestinal discomfort on the bike on race day, and that's definitely something that you don't want to start playing around with. So if you have had exposure to using any sort of supplements, maybe stick to that. There isn't really one that's better for you than other. It's very individualized. Certain people react differently to certain products as well. My advice would be, though, to make sure maybe looking at actually eating proper foods rather than worrying necessarily just about bars and gels, if, however, you haven't started using them already. So I'd try and avoid as far as possible in this last week and a half to be trying anything new and trying different products, especially if you're going to be bouncing around and trying to find something new that works for you. At this stage, it's a little bit too late for that. If you have got exposure to some products, stick with what you know, and post-race, start looking around at finding something that works maybe a little bit better for you.
Cool. Dev, another question from Gerard. Gerard says, I developed flu on Monday. I've been on antibiotics for 3 days. I'll finish the course tomorrow. If I'm fine, I want to cycle on Saturday. So my question is, how hard must I go in training next week? He says, I normally do about 14 hours a week. That's between 350 and 450 Ks in the week.
Gerard, at this stage, after coming back from flu, if your antibiotics finishes tomorrow, I'd maybe still take a little bit of time off and come the weekend, easy rides. Don't go anything too long. It's now, again, the training's done. So your training bulk hopefully should be done at the moment, and it's now just about keeping yourself fresh. So don't go out, don't go and push yourself. If you do too much intensity or you try and push yourself too hard for too long, you could get sick again. and also prolong your recovery from the illness. So my suggestion would be to just do a light ride, see how you feel, how your body responds to that, and then maybe next week add one or two, like add a little bit of intensity into your training, and just keep the intensity going up until race day. So it's more important now for you to try and stay healthy and not necessarily delay how long it's going to take you to get better and get well. So nice, easy stuff for you at the moment, and hopefully come a couple of days before race day, you're at 100%, and race day, you can still have a great race.
Awesome, cool. There are some amazing questions coming through. Keep them coming. Pop them into the comments. If you've just joined us, welcome. It is our third and final Medihelp trapNET webinar in the build-up to this year's race, and we'll be getting to more questions in just a mo. Dev, let's talk about registration and the logistics around what's going to be happening the 2 days before race day. As I said at the start of the webinar, everything happening at Supersport Park. At Centurion registration, you need to go through the main gate. That's West Avenue. And the good news is there's going to be plenty of safe and free parking for the registration and the cycling market. And as I said at the start of tonight's webinar as well, it's going to be open, and you can register from 10 a.m. in the morning through to 7 p.m. on the Friday. That's Friday the 27th. And then on Saturday the 28th from 9 a.m. through to 4 p.m. And just also bear in mind that you are going to be required to produce your Cycling South Africa membership when you do register. And if you don't have one, you'll have to purchase an event day license, which is going to cost you $35. And this is also important to know that you can only pay in cash for that. So do bring a little bit of cash along if you are going to be buying that CSA registration or the event day license. It's going to be $35 and you have to pay in cash. Dev, something I'm looking forward to is the cycling market, or the cycle market, that's going to be happening over the 2 days before race day as well.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and it's actually a really nice time to start to interact with clients as well. So, guys, we will have a stand there. So, please, while you're registering, pop in, come say how's it, and also if you have any final questions, come have a chat. It is important, though, when you're talking about the market, not to spend too much time wandering around on your legs. Remember, you've got a race the next day or the 2 days' time. You want to still stay quite fresh. So get in, have a look around, and then try as soon as possible to get out of there and start resting up. When we start talking cycling markets, and there's different products and different guys promoting their products and that, don't be overwhelmed and dazzled by the different sales pitches. It's something that we do see across the board very often. It's really nice. There's specials on. We buy new products. We start trying new things. You might want to buy a new pair of cycling shoes. Please don't play around with new cycling shoes or new kit the day before a race. If you are going to get sucked in, or you are interested in buying something that might be on a great deal, go ahead by all means. Keep it after the race. Let's play around. Let's get into those new shoes post-race where you're not risking affecting your event itself or your race itself. As I said, we will be there, so please feel free to pop in, come say hi. If you've got any final questions, anything we can give some advice on, we'd love to see you guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to confirm, we're not saying don't shop. We obviously want you to shop. But what Dev's saying is don't go and buy something, particularly, like you say, if it's kit, new shoes, or something like that, and nutrition stuff that you're going to try out on race day. That's the last thing you want to do, is buy stuff at the cycle market and then go and blow your race. We definitely want you to buy stuff to try out, but race day is not the time to try new stuff. And also, while you're at the cycle market, be sure to collect your complimentary Medihelp buff. That's going to be at the Medihelp stand as well. And the good news is, if you on this webinar and you haven't entered the race yet, official entries closed just a couple of nights ago, but there are late entries that you can get in. They are limited late entries and only available on the Friday and the Saturday at the registration. There will be no late entries taken on race day. So if you pitch up on race day and you haven't entered, you're not going to be able to ride. So make sure you get through to registration on Friday or Saturday, and you can enter there as well. I mentioned at the top of the webinar too that if you have little ones, what a great sort of way to introduce them to the sport of cycling with the junior trapNET. It's happening on Saturday, the 28th of September. And it's a 1 kilometer sort of track, all within the secure Supersport Park precinct. And it's going to be safe. It's pretty level. There's tar, smooth gravel, and grass, so nothing really can go wrong, which is going to be good fun. And it's for little ones who are sort of up to grade R, so essentially preschool kids, and you can participate. And they need to be with a parent. Okay, so I'll get into more details with that now. They can do it on any form of bicycle. So if it's a trike, one of those sort of push bikes, those Y bikes, anything of that, but the parent or guardian needs to be on foot. So the little ones aren't going to go off on their own, because that's just going to be absolute chaos. So you need to be with your little one just from a safety perspective. So one parent or one guardian with a child. And there are going to be 2 start times. As I mentioned, the first one is at 10 a.m. and the second one is at midday. So you can choose which one works better for you. And all the kids will receive a Twizzle water and a medal as well. And they can't, as I said, participate without a parent or guardian. Can enter on trapnet.co.za. Also, late junior trapNET entries available on Friday and Saturday at registration as well. So yeah, get your kids involved. I love the fact that it is a big sort of family event, and we'll take it from there. Dev, let's touch on, I know you've got some sort of advice from a race day perspective. We'll touch on a bit of that. Then we've got some race day questions that I want to get into as well that have come through in the comments, which I think are awesome. But let's talk a little bit about race day. You've mentioned nothing new, but that is the big one. Sorry, I missed out the junior trapNET number collection. So you can pick them up on Friday between 10 and 7, and then on Saturday between 9 and 12. So up to the start of the second race on Saturday, you can pick up the junior race numbers as well. Race day, Dev, nothing new on race day, and that goes across the board, pretty much everything.
Yeah, 100%. So we've already touched on no new kit, don't play around with new stuff. Same will apply for nutrition, as I've already mentioned a little bit earlier as well. You don't want to start taking any risks to what your body's used to and what you've been training. So try and avoid that. And again, we mentioned if you get given free supplements and free things to try, chuck it in a bag and let's play around with that post-race leading up towards another event later on or in training. And I've got a point there on strapping as well. If you are struggling with a slight niggle, you need to be playing around now and experimenting that strapping will actually work for you. There's sometimes we might feel on the day you might want to strap a knee or something up, and the problem with that is it might actually affect how your knee tracks on the bike. And I'm using just a knee as an example, and that in itself could affect and could cause pain on the bike itself. So if you are looking at maybe strapping a niggle or an injury and you feel that is necessary, make sure you're playing around that it does actually work for you and do it now before we get to race day itself. Another thing I like to do is set yourself a checklist. You want to, ultimately on race day, you want to avoid any sort of anxiety and unnecessary stress. So set yourself a checklist the night before, make sure you've got all your numbers and stuff and everything you needed to get a registration. You've got all your spares set aside. Your bike hopefully is in good condition. So now is the time also to make sure it just goes in maybe for a final service and make sure that everything is in good working condition before race day. And if you are going to service your bike in this next sort of 2 weeks, make sure you do give it a ride, 1 or 2 rides before race day. So you also just don't want to pick your bike up and you haven't checked something and there's something that might be loose or isn't 100% sorted. So set yourself a checklist and make sure that you've got everything in place, that you just remove a little bit of the anxiety leading up until race day, especially for those of you that this could be your first big event. You want to just make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row properly. We've mentioned in the past timing chips. Timing chips are going to be compulsory. So if you haven't got a timing chip, unfortunately, you're not going to get a result. And Brad, I see there, RaceTech is the timing system that will be operating on race day. So if you have got a RaceTech timing chip, you're good to go. If not, you'll need to get one at your registration itself, if I'm correct in saying that.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Another point, know the layout of the venue and parking arrangements. So the same thing, there's often, with the amount of riders that come to an event like this, there might be a little bit of traffic getting in. So make sure that you also just plan ahead for that. I have mentioned it in the past as well. Get there a little bit earlier. Make sure that you find a decent parking. Rather spend some time at the venue getting yourself kitted up, and again, alleviating a little bit of that unnecessary anxiety and stress. Make sure that you've got a decent parking. You can start kitting yourself up. You can actually maybe spend a little bit of time doing some warming up, get on the bike, ride around a little bit before the start itself. As we've mentioned, the start and finish is at Supersport Park in Centurion. So there's the nice thing is you'll be back at your car as soon as you are finished with the event. You also want to make sure that you do, as I said, just get there a little bit earlier, preferably an hour, maybe even a little bit more before your start time. You don't want to get stuck in traffic. You want to make sure that you've got all your stuff kitted and you can spend a little bit of time there.
Let me just jump in there before we
Sure.
go any further, because there's a great question about getting to the start, and it's from forgive me if I butcher the name, but it's Ratirello. I hope I got that right. Ratirello says, I live around Centurion, about 15 kilometers from Supersport Park. Would you advise riding to the start as a warm-up, or should I just drive?
Look, I think something that's usually a great option. If you are relatively close and it's not necessarily a taxing ride there, and what I mean by that is you don't want to be doing a ride that might be quite hilly and you're going to blow half your energy just trying to get there in the morning. If you feel that it's close enough and you feel you're in a condition that you can do that as a warm-up ride, then yes, by all means. If you are going to be pushing for a really hard time, just keep in mind that you're probably then going to have to ride 15 kilometers home as well after what hopefully will be a nice hard push. So just keep that in mind. But yes, if you feel the option riding to the start, then by all means just make sure you stay safe. And that generally is also, it is a good option to get some warming up before the event, yes.
Yeah, and also that time of the morning, if you are going to ride, make sure you've got lights on the bike and that you are visible as well. Like Dev said, you just want to make sure that you are safe and secure, particularly getting to the start. But speaking of race day, there is tons of parking. I'll get into that in just a moment as well. But if you are coming from out of town, or if you're wanting to, there's nothing better than staying like literally right on the doorstep of the start. And the Medihelp trapNET have just done a deal with the Centurion Lake Hotel, that you can get accommodation on Saturday night. So the night before the race, it's $9.90 for a single or double room, and it includes breakfast. And the good news is they're doing an early breakfast for the cyclists. So if you are wanting to be right, essentially where everything's going to be happening, literally just around the corner, then yeah, that is what you need to check out. Check out Centurion Lake Hotel for that deal as well. Dev, we were talking about arriving an hour before, at least an hour before, and there's been a couple of questions coming through with regards to what the start times are. I can tell you that look out in your email inbox this coming Friday. That's Friday the 20th of September, the sort of seeding groups and that have been done, and the start times and the seeding groups will be mailed out on Friday. So that is important to know. There's also road closures around the venue. Dev, that's something that you mentioned about knowing the start and the venue and that sort of thing. It's important to know that there are going to be road closures, and you also need to be sure that you aren't parking illegally or on or in front of residential property, because if you do, you are going to be towed away. So make sure that you do park legally. Don't leave, I hate to say this, but don't leave any valuables in plain sight or bicycles attached to the tow bar of your vehicle. There is a secure bike park available at the venue as well. And secure paid parking is available at Supersport Park on Sunday, on race day, and you can get those parking tickets on sale at registration for $30, and that also is cash only. So a bit of cash that you need is for your CSA day license if you don't have one, and for a parking sort of voucher for race day. So $30 for that, $35 for your Cycling South Africa day license. Dev, the importance of knowing the route, and we're not going to go through the route tonight, but our first webinar that we did, which I'll put the link to that in the comments as well, we literally did a full rundown on the route. So if you missed that first webinar, be sure to check that out as well. But it's important to know what you're in for on race day.
Yeah, 100%. So we've spoken about it. You want to know where the water points are going to be. You want to know where you want to maybe save a little bit of energy, maybe where you can push a little bit harder, make up a little bit of time. So it is important, and it's also important for yours and other riders' safety as well out en route. So we have got a point here as well. Just always keep left. I mean, you might have full lane closures or full road closures, but just from an etiquette point of view and an awareness point of view, stick to the left-hand side unless obviously either passing riders or otherwise instructed by marshals. And as you say, if you just know the route, it also just takes another bit of that anxiety out, and you know what to prepare yourself for on race day. And as I've said, where the water points are, where you need to hydrate and take in on nutrition, have a little bit of a race strategy going in for race day to give you the best possible chance in doing well.
Absolutely. And yeah, that getting to the start early, there's nothing that I hate more than rushing to get to a start line. So get there at least an hour early to make sure that everything is chilled and relaxed and you are all sorted. All right, Dev, a couple of questions. Dean wants to know if you're a weatherman. 11 days away. Does anybody know what the weather might hold for the day?
Dean, unfortunately, I've got no idea there. 11 days out, you can probably now already start looking at some of the weather forecasts. At the moment, Pretoria, I think we're in for some decent weather. I can't answer that question, unfortunately, on race day itself.
I love it. All right, let's get to a couple of other questions before we continue about what's going on race day. One in from Raymond. Raymond saying, I'm a first-time rider of the trapNET. What is the best approach to the 95Ks for a sub 3 hour? His previous best time over that sort of distance was a 3:30.
All right, so again, Raymond, I'm hoping the training's been good and hoping you've got the good training in the legs, and I think that in itself is probably the secret. Come race day, one, as we've mentioned, know the route, have a strategy in place. So know where you feel that you'd be able to push. So again, I don't necessarily know your strengths and weaknesses, but if you might be a good climber, you might feel that that's somewhere on the couple of climbs that there are on the route, you might feel that you're able to make up a little bit of time there. There's a lot of fast flowing sections. There's a lot of nice flat downhill type sessions where you can definitely make up some good time. But it is important then to, as I say, have a strategy in place and pace yourself a little bit from the start. Don't get too caught up in the excitement of trying to chase a time. Have your plan and try and stick to your plans at certain points along the way. If you get caught up trying to push a little bit too hard in the beginning of the race, there are a couple of stingers and a couple of climbs towards the end of the race that can hurt the legs a little bit if you've spent too much in the first half of the race. So my suggestion would be just to hold off slightly, maybe find a bunch that works really well with you, and in saying that, also don't find a bunch that might be stretching you a little bit too early. So find a bunch that you're comfortable in that might work according to your strategy, and come the second half of the race, and when I say even second half, you can probably go the last 20 to 30 kilometers of the race is where you can really start to open up. But as I mentioned, there are a couple of climbs that are still there to hurt the legs towards the end.
Dev, you segued perfectly into our next question. It's from Raturello, and Raturello saying, I rode the Rand Water Race for victory last weekend. I tried to stick with my bunch for the first 25 kilometers, but I got dropped on the first serious climb due to a lack of concentration. What advice would you give to catch a bunch without necessarily burning too many matches and not finishing the race entirely? I don't think it was a fitness issue. I just left the gap for too long and found myself spending too much energy trying to catch up. So I decided to wait for the next bunch rather.
Look, I think you've answered your own question there. You don't want to go hard trying to catch a bunch, especially if you've been sitting in a bunch and you've been feeling really comfortable and you know somewhere along the line you'd probably be able to catch them without spending too much, then that's fine. But if you are sitting in a bunch that's going along quite nicely, but you know that anything more than that, you'll be stretching yourself, if you lose touch with that bunch, unfortunately, you are going to hurt yourself trying to catch that bunch again. So my suggestion there would be to maybe find either another bunch or one or two riders that you can start, form your own bunch, and just slowly try and make your way back to it. Or you'll get a point out on the route where you can make up a little bit of time. But definitely don't, if you feel that you've lost contact, don't try within the next couple of kilometers, try and latch back onto that bunch, because that's generally where you are going to spend too much energy too quickly.
Cool. Dev, here's a nutrition question for race day from Peter, and I think it's quite a cool one. A lot of the triathletes do this, funnily enough. Peter says squirting your gels. He's going to take 2 gels. That's what he was planning on taking for the race. Squirting those 2 gels into a water bottle and mixing it with water, 500 mils of water with the 2 gels, and then sipping that throughout the race. Does that have the same effect as taking a gel every 45 minutes? He's obviously using gels to sort of boost his energy on race day. Would it have the same effect as 2 sort of solid boosts every 45 minutes?
No, so Peter, you'll firstly need to see what the concentration of carbohydrate is in each of those gels. Again, remember those gels, the concentration of carbohydrates for a 45-minute span, for instance, you can't stretch that out because you are diluting that. So my suggestion would be, I really don't have a problem with you mixing it with water. You're taking in more fluid as well, so that is really a great idea. But then you still need to be taking that gel and water every 45 minutes. You don't want to be diluting the concentration over an extended period of time. So if you're taking in 30 grams of carbs, for instance, in a gel, you still, whether it's mixed with water or the gel itself, you still want to be taking that in the same time frame. You don't want to be spreading that out, because ultimately all you're doing then is you taking in fewer carbs over a longer period of time, and are affecting your energy intake there. So I'm happy for you to mix it with water if that's something that you feel you can get in a little bit easier. You're still going to need to take those gels on a 45-minute to an hour sort of time span. So you just means you're going to take in a lot more fluid with that as well.
Cool. All right. Dean, you'll be pleased to know the Medihelp trapNET team have just sent me a message saying that they've had a look at the weather, and it looks like it's going to be Friday 27 showing 28 degrees, Wednesday and Thursday 25. But I think you're right. Only a 10-day forecast is about as far as you can go. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be on race day. But as somebody who studied climatology at university, I can tell you the weatherman's probably not going to get it right. So your guess is as good as the next one's. All right, cool. We've got another question from Peter, which I'll get to in a moment, Peter, about your training and intensity. And we've also got a question in from Thomas and Ramona, who I will get to in a moment as well. If you've got any questions, please do pop them in the comments. Dev, let's carry on with a little bit of race day logistics. And unfortunately, it is something we need to talk about, but there are a couple of cutoff points on the route as well. The first one is at 40 kilometers in, and the cutoff point there is 10 a.m. So the second one is at 71 k's, and the cutoff there is at midday. You're not allowed to continue with the race if you get to a cutoff point and you've missed that cutoff, okay? There is going to be a sweep bus and truck in position. That if you reach that point after the cutoff point, you're not going to be allowed to continue, and you will be popped into the sweeper vehicle and your bike into the truck, and you'll be transported back to the venue. Also, there's going to be safety, security, and medical teams both available at the venue, the start and finish venue, as well as on the route. And this is an important number to remember. So what I would suggest is pop this into your cell phone now, have it just in case, 012 663 2111. That's the number if there is any emergencies on race day. You'll also get those details in your race pack and final race instructions as well, but I wanted to put it out there so that you had it in the meantime. And then also from a mechanical support perspective, the ASG, the store in Pretoria, is going to be providing medical support at the start. There's going to be no mechanical support along the route. No mechanical, yeah, let me get that right. There's going to be medical, but there's no mechanical. Along the route, you need to be self-sufficient. So make sure that you've got tire levers. Make sure that you've got a couple of spare tubes, a couple of CO2 canisters if that's what you use. the last thing you want to do is have a mechanical, a puncture or something, and you don't have the gear to fix it. So make sure that you are self-sufficient on race day. There's also going to be a sweep vehicle at the back of the field that will collect riders and their bikes. So if you do have a mechanical, for instance, if you rip a spoke out of a rim, touch wood that happens and you can't ride, that you will get picked up. So you don't need to phone an Uber to come and fetch you. We will be able to take you back to the start and finish. Good news is as well, there is a secure tog bag area at the start. So if you're going to race day on your own and you want to pack some warm, dry sort of stuff, you can pop it in a kit bag. You can pop it to the secure tog bag area. Dev, let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you are sort of and obviously one of the things on race day is to eat a solid breakfast.
Yeah, for sure. So we did speak quite at length about this in the last webinar. But yes, making sure that you are fueling up until the event, a good solid breakfast well in advance, so two hours before the event. And if you do get up early and you might have to travel to the event itself and you've had an early breakfast, maybe take a snack or something along that you can carry on fueling yourself leading up to the start itself, especially if your start time might be a little bit later. So keep fueling yourself and keep hydrated. You still want to keep drinking up until the start of the race. You don't want to get to the start line slightly on the back foot at all. We've already touched on as well from a race strategy point of view, so make sure that you have got a plan in place. It just helps your race idea, or as I mentioned, helps taking a little bit of that anxiety out, having a plan. And having a goal to chase makes things a little bit easier when it comes to trying to achieve the goal that you might have set out for the day itself.
Cool stuff. All right, and then I think most important, Dev, is to have fun. We do this because we love the sport and we love sort of getting out on our bike, and there's not too many opportunities where you get to ride around a city like Tshwane with full road closures and full lane closures. So first and foremost, I think have fun.
Yeah, that's 100%. Go out there, have a draw on the day. And yeah, like you say, we are lucky enough and privileged enough here to have full road closure and lane closures. So make the most of that. Take it all in, take a bit of sights in, and yeah, go out there and hopefully you can all smash the goals that you set yourselves aside.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. Dean had another quick question. He said if the cutoff point is at 40 kilometers, or at 40 kilometers is at 10 a.m., what is the latest start time? Well, Dean, I can tell you that those cutoffs are worked out to 15 kilometers an hour, okay? So they are pretty generous, and the last start time is at 7:24. So that should give you a bit of an indication of what's happening with those. And then I love it when we do these things, Dev, and people ask a question and then it gets answered in the comments, which is awesome. So I'm going to pop the question up from Ratrello. Ratrello saying, I'm doing my first trapNET. How does the elevation compare to that of the 947 or the Tshwane? And I mean, I don't have those numbers offhand, but Dean just said, he said roughly about 66%. He said there's just over 1,000 meters of climbing in this one, whereas the 947 has about 1,500 meters. I don't know if you've got anything to add on to that, Dev?
Yeah, so just, again, I don't necessarily have the numbers in front of me, but just knowing the routes and having ridden all the routes itself, this definitely is a lot flatter, a lot quicker. It'll definitely be a much faster race. As I say, don't be fooled. There are a couple of climbs that are there to sting the legs a little bit. But this one will definitely be a much faster race. And I really think if you are using it as a seeding event as well, you're going to do pretty well here for that.
Yeah, cool. So, Dev, just to touch on a couple of more logistic things for after the race, we want you to stick around after the race. Obviously, there's a very cool prize that we mentioned in the first two webinars that you need to be at the lucky draw for if you want to win, and I'll tell you more about that in a mo. But if you are entering the venue after the race, you are going to need to place your bike in the secure bike park that's going to be provided. You'll be issued with a unique tag for yourself and your bicycle, so it's going to be safely stored. So if you want to catch up with cycling mates and that after the race, you can do that, safe in the knowledge that your bike is going to be safe. The prize giving is going to take place at 11 a.m. once all the sort of racing groups have finished and the racing results have been verified by Cycling South Africa. As I said about the Race Tech chips, no chip, no time. They are compulsory for all racing groups. So yeah, if you don't have a chip, you're not in line to win any prizes. And you need to be at the prize giving if you do win or if you are in line for a prize. And then I mentioned that lucky draw. Dev, we were talking about that great trip to Italy to go to the Pinarello Gran Fondo, which if you enter the race before midnight on the 16th of September, you are automatically in the draw, okay? It is going to be a phenomenal cycling experience, and it is a big but, you need to be present at prize giving to receive the prize. So if the person on the day is not there, the last thing you want to do is find out from mates afterwards that you won the prize and you weren't there to claim it. So stick around, have some fun, talk a little bit of nonsense as you do after a ride, share war stories, but make sure you're there for that draw because it is an absolutely incredible prize. They have a couple more questions. Let me get to Peter's one. Peter's aiming for a sub 3. He wants to know what intensity should I be pushing on my indoor trainer for the last 2 weeks with the hours of training being reduced between 20 and 30%, as you mentioned in the taper. So first week 20%, second week 30. What should he be doing with his intensity on the indoor trainer sessions?
Peter, at this stage, it's as I mentioned, your training is done itself. So you should have done, hopefully most of your intensity and your volume of training has been done. So this now is just a case of staying sharp. So in the last week and a half, the intensity that you want to be doing, 2-minute type intervals, 1-minute type intervals, something that's just quite fast, quite hard on the legs, but you also don't want to be doing too many intervals that are going to tire the legs out. So if you are an athlete who might take a little bit longer to recover from intensity kind of work, make sure you time those intensity sessions well in advance to get enough recovery before the start of the event. If not, you can stay sharp up until Thursday. You might still be able to put in sort of 30-second, 1-minute pieces. But as I mentioned, you probably don't want to do more than 6 intervals, 6 1-minute intervals. That's really just a case of sharpening and keeping the legs ready to go for an intensity point of view. You might also on race day itself in a warm-up add one or two sort of 20 to 30 second builds of intensity into your warm-up, just again to get the legs firing, ready to go. Then you're on the start line. It's not going to take you 10 minutes to actually warm up itself. So what I would look at doing, don't think of the next 2 weeks as training, but sort of think of the more case of just staying sharp and focus more on the recovery side of things and make sure that the legs are fresh and not feeling heavy. I hope that answers the question.
I'm sure it does. All right. Dev, question from Thomas and Ramona. Thomas, they're struggling with the same problem I've been struggling with over winter. During winter, training went down and the weight has gone up. What will be the best way to lose weight? Is it by going on a diet now or just pushing up the intervals in training or training more before race day?
All right. So again, we're very close to race day and there's not going to be... When we start talking trying to lose weight or trying to diet now before race day with a week and a half out, you're not going to get very much from that. The time just isn't long enough for that to happen, and what you could do if you are trying to start yourself and trying to think about losing weight is you're actually going to have a negative effect on race day because now you're also not fueling your body. So I would stay away from trying to think about that. Unfortunately, what is done is done, and there's not a lot that we can change in a week and a half now leading up until the event. What I would say is let's sort of chalk it up to a learning curve. We do race day, go out, hopefully you can still meet some goals that you might have, and then start to set more structure in place going forward in your training and from a nutritional point of view as well. But yeah, please try and avoid sort of flash or rush diets, thinking you're going to work miracles in a week and a half, because unfortunately you won't, and you're actually going to do more harm to the performance you're trying to achieve on race day.
Absolutely. All right. Dev, here's a question, and I know the answer to this. I'm going to answer it, which is cool. It's from Barent. Barent says he stays in the northwest in Potchefstroom. He says, can I collect my number before the start at the venue? He says, I'm working on Friday and Saturday. Barent, what you can do, obviously, it's not norm, so this applies to anyone who can't make it. Ideally, we want you to come to registration. It just makes everyone's life easier. But if you are in a situation like Barent where you are working, or if you've got an emergency comes up and you can't make it to registration, get hold of the race office. And they will make a plan for you to pick it up on race morning. So that's what I would suggest. You can contact them through the website, trapnet.co.za. That's where you can get hold of them. You would have also got emails along the way. You can just pop the race office an email and make sure that you organise that as well. We've had some great questions in. We are rapidly running out of time, Dev. I just wanted to go through some final resources that you can get hold of before race day. There was a great article that Devlin wrote for this month's Modern Athlete. If you haven't read it yet, it's probably definitely worthwhile reading, and it's about taking part in a race like the Medihelp trapNET. All you need to do is go over to coachparry.com/article. That'll redirect you to their Digimag, and you'll be able to read that article. There'll be lots of great advice in there, so check that out as well. We've also got a whole bunch of podcasts that you can listen to. Just search for Ride with Coach Parry in whatever podcast app you use. If you use Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, whatever it is, you can listen to those podcasts as well. And then there are also a whole bunch of Coach Parry videos on YouTube. There's a channel that's a cycling channel, lots of advice there too. And then also we've got a whole bunch of training plans that you can get access to through coachparry.com. You can grab a training plan to suit your ability, and you'll know exactly what you need to do every single day, and most importantly, at what intensity you need to be riding your training rides at. You can also get access to Coach Devlin, as well as the rest of our coaches in the forums, and you get easy access via our Coach Parry iOS and Android app as well. All you need to do if you want to find out more about it is head over to coachparry.com/join-cycling. All right, we mentioned the sunnies that were up for grabs, $1,600 worth of Rudy Project Spinhawk Loud sunglasses, and I said that it would go to somebody who asked a great question. So I think I was consulting with the team from the Medihelp trapNET, and they have decided on a winner, and it is Ratarello who wins those sunglasses. Congratulations, Ratarello. I will be in touch via email. And we'll get those sunnies to you. They are awesome. Let me tell you, fantastic. If you want to find out more about them as well, if you want to buy yourself a pair, be sure to check out the folks from ASG. That's who those are compliments from. Dev, I'm going to leave the final little bit to you. Final sort of race day instructions. As you mentioned, we are going to be at the expo. So if you need some training advice, race day advice or sort of pacing strategies, be sure to come to speak to Devlin and the rest of the Coach Parry team. But for tonight, your parting shot.
Have a plan. So, as I've mentioned a couple of times tonight, take any anxiety and unnecessary stress out of race day. Have a plan, make sure your checklists are all in place. Have a race strategy, know what you're going to use, when you're going to use, when you're going to go hard, when you're going to take it easy. Have a plan and ultimately go out there, have a lot of fun, and I really hope to see you guys smashing some of the goals that you have set for yourselves on race day.
Okay, Dean asked a question earlier, and I was going to ask it, but then I just obviously got busy, but he's asked it again. Dev, you're not getting off lightly. What's your goal time on race day?
I actually just saw that question come through, and Dean's putting me on the spot here. Dean coming off a stage race in the last week, the legs a little bit tired, but my goal for race day will be a sub 3 hours. So, I'm going to kind of leave it there and see how things go come race day.
Awesome. All right, don't forget, if there is any information that you need, if you have any questions between now and race day, get in touch with the race office. Trapnet.co.za is where you can find all the sort of info on the road closures and the start and finish venue, all of that stuff as well. You'll get all of that. Look out for an email Friday morning or Friday during the day with your start times and the seating group that you're in, and make sure that you do take a little bit of cash to the Medihelp trapNET cycling market as well, to make sure that you pay for your Cycling South Africa day license and also parking on race day in Supersport Park. From myself, Brad Brown, we've absolutely loved doing these webinars. I want to say best of luck to you for race day as well. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you smashing your goals on race day.
Good luck, Brad.